Apprehend God in all things, for God is in all things. Every single creature is filled with God and is a book about God. Amen. So my youngest son, Miles, he's really into basketball. And if you want to know more about that, see me afterwards and I'll talk to you forever if you want to know. But just for now, just know he's really into basketball. So I spend a great deal of my time, especially weekends, in gyms, watching games. And now he's doing AAU. You guys ever have anybody do AAU? Man, I hate it. AAU is so hard. I mean, it's like, God, it's so loud. And every week there's this trash talking, and then there's arguments, and it's like everybody's on the verge of a fight, and that's just the parents. Man, that's just the stand. So there's only one thing that everybody agrees on. One thing. The refs are no good. The referees stink. Everybody agrees on that, whatever side you're on. Like this last game, this last tournament. So somebody from our team, well, it's not like I play, but somebody from the team Miles plays on, hits a three-pointer. I won't tell you who, but you can imagine that, okay? Hits a three-pointer, and our team goes up by 1 point. The other team tries to get the ball in real quick. There's only 4 seconds left. Throws it in. The ball gets tipped. The ball's just rolling along, and 2 guys are going for it with 0.4 seconds. 0.4 seconds. The referee calls a foul on our guy, going for a loose ball. How can you respect a person like that? How can you... I can't think of one good thing to say about the guy. All I'm thinking is, you are the worst human being there ever was. You have just destroyed all of our kids. You've destroyed them. You've done it right here in this moment. At that point in time, really, I despised that man. He was the worst person ever. And then I hear the gospel today, right? And it says, just to remind you, it ends with, so they may be one as we are one. So they may be one as we are one. And I'm thinking, well, does this include referees? How many people does this include, right? Because when I think of being one with everything, connecting to all that is, I think of this picture right here that we put on the front of the bulletin. When I'm in there, when I'm out in this place, then being one as we are one makes perfect sense to me. Did you ever have that experience? It's a beautiful experience, being one with everything. But Jesus is including people in this, right? So it's not just a nice landscape out somewhere, which is good and powerful and right, but it's people. And I'm thinking, do I really have to do this with referee guys like that guy? And the thing is, this isn't a supposed to. This isn't a have to. This isn't a commandment. This isn't a rule. This isn't a, if you don't do this, you don't get to go to heaven. This isn't a requirement for anything. This idea of, so they may be one as we are one. It's none of those things. You know what it is for me? It's an invitation. Jesus is giving us an invitation into the power of relationships, into the power of deep connection with others. And in a sense, Jesus is saying, so they may be one as we are one. And in saying that, he's giving us an invitation to enter those relationships that enable us to experience and participate in the very life of God, that they may be one as we are one, is an invitation into the very life of God, is an invitation through relationships with one another to participate in a relationship with God, just as Jesus did. Okay? If that's confusing to you, here's the bottom line of all that. When we experience oneness with one another, we encounter God. I'm going to say it again. When we experience oneness with each other, we encounter the very life of God. Even with referees. So yeah, the game's over, 0.4, our team loses. And I'm just like, I can't tell you what I'm like, you know? I mean, I can't use the words right now. So I'm just quite angry, is what I, you know? And I'm standing over waiting for Miles because he has to change, and after he changes, we're going to go. And at where I'm standing, the ref comes over and sits down right next to me, and it's not a real big space, so it's not like I can go anywhere. And I'm forced to be with this person I despise. You know? God, of all the nerve. I mean, one more thing I could just add to the list of why I don't like the guy. And then he strikes up a conversation with me. He's like, so your son, and I guess he knew who my son was, your son's a really good player. And I'm like, yeah, like you care. A lot of good that does me now, buddy. So, and then he keeps on, and he goes, so is he your only child? No. So how many children do you have? 3. So what do they like to do? And I'm like, God, you're just not getting the hint that I don't want to talk. Apparently he wasn't getting the hint that I really didn't want to talk to him. Because he just kept probing. And it's like, okay, so then I tell him about my kids. And then, you know, and then you're forced to, right? I have to ask the question, right? I have to say, so do you have children? And I'm thinking, Miles, hurry up. Come on, I just want to get out of here. And he says yes, and then he goes into it, and he starts telling me about his kids, and he goes, and my daughter is going to prom tonight, and I've been a nervous wreck all day long. And he goes, you know, she's a great kid, and she's going to prom with someone who's just a wonderful guy, and I trust him to death. He says, I guess in the end you just have to do the best you can raising them, and then just set them free. And right there in that moment, I saw him as more than just a referee. I saw him as a human being with a daughter going to prom. And I know what that's like. So I saw myself in him. And in that place, there was oneness. For just a moment. And it made all the difference. You see, in that moment, he ceased being a function and he became human. And this is what Jesus is inviting us into. He's saying, in those relationships with everybody you meet, you have this opportunity you have this opportunity for deep, deep connection, even with people you might think you don't like. And in those places, you experience the life of God. And it simply is a better way to live. So that guy, he refereed one more game for Miles that day. Man, he's a terrible ref. He's just a terrible ref. But he's a pretty good guy. Amen.